On this week's episode, it's another Portugal the Simple Life first, and I'm joined by Jonas, a very talented Fado singer and our first male Fado singer that we've had on the podcast. We discuss, amongst other things, what Fado means to him, how Fado touches just about everyone regardless of language or culture, and why he is so much more than your average Fado singer. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal the Simple Life, and I'm really honored to be joined here by Jonas. It's just Jonas, right?
Just Jonas. Hello, everyone.
Jonas. So,
I'm
Jonas,
gonna give my best to talk a good English. It's not my strongest.
Don't worry. It's good. Your English is very good. Jonas, you're the first male Fado singer that we've had on the podcast. So I'm super excited and really honored. But maybe you can start off by telling us a little bit about you.
Starting where?
Just general, anything that you can tell us about you, how old you are, where you're from, what you do, a little bit of background information. Yeah.
Well, I'm a Lisbon citizen. I was born in Lisbon in St. George of Arroios. That's a bit why my last album it calls St. George. Focusing more about the work, I was always very into art since I remember I was a person. So in the school, like the teachers, everyone sees that I had this interest. They always putting me doing like the main roles, and they give me the biggest responsibility. This was very good for me. But then my really artistic field started in Chapiteau, which is an art school near to the St. George Castle in near to Alfama. And there I had to learn dance, theater, and since there I never stopped. I was in London after that, and it's where I started to sing professionally Fado in London. I went there to study circus and to record an album of soul or gospel because I was really into that at the time. But I started to miss Portugal a lot, and I started to sing Fado a bit everywhere in London. And it's when then I decided to return to Portugal to make a Fado career more serious. Okay. This was in 2008, and since there I'm here doing now I'm a choreographer and a Fado singer, and I kind of match both disciplines.
Amazing. Okay, so let's put all of this into context. I was actually I was sitting in hospital, and this guy came on the TV singing Fado, and it was you, and I was like, whoa, this guy's good. This guy's really good. Then I was on looking at my Instagram, and I'm friends with Emilia. And she's been on the podcast, and I said, "Oh, do you know Jonas?" She said, "Yeah, I really know Jonas." I said, "Do you think you'd be a good guest for the podcast?" She said, "The best." And now here we are. So we have to say thank you to Amelia because she set us up. So Amelia, if you're listening, thank you for setting us up. Mm-hmm. But Jonas, take us back. I want to talk about that journey of going to London and rediscovering some of your roots and things and what made you miss. But before that, take us back to growing up in that part of Lisbon, because that's kind of like the ground zero of Fado in the city. You've got Alfama, Moraria, São Jorge, that whole area. It kind of looks like this, with these little narrow streets. It's such a beautiful part of the country. But take us back to growing up there and how that influenced you as an artist, as a person, as a young man.
I didn't grow up there. I was born there, but I grew up more to Lumiar, which is near to Campo Grande, which before it used to be also a very, very strong Fado area. But
Lumiar was?
Yes, it was. It was. They used to call it Fado das Hortas, like the Fado of the countryside, because this was the countryside of Lisbon, and they used to do it outside with dance also. And with Fado Batis.
So in those days, Lumiar was considered the countryside?
It was the countryside. It was like the farms that were feeding Lisbon.
It's not countryside anymore.
It's not countryside anymore. No.
Okay. That's
and
interesting.
I have my father family is from Lumiar, and my mother family is from Moraria. So the Fado in our home, it was very present all the time, like listening these musics. But I was really like I'm the only Fado singer in my family, like professional. My mother used to sing, but I'm the only one. So in Fado, we say that Fado chooses you. You don't choose Fado. And I really had this curiosity in talking about the big names of Fado with my grandparents, because I've grown up mainly with my grandparents. My grandfather, he used to work in the same market of Amália Rodrigo, so they had a lot of histories about Fado, and I was all the time asking them. And I've grown up with this imaginary, but for my curiosity, it was not, nobody pushed me. But in this time to say in this, I was ashamed to say at school that I was listening Fado. It was a very old-fashioned thing, just for old people, and you would get bullied if you say that you were a Fado lover. So I didn't. That's why I was so into hip hop and soul, and that's why I went to London. But then there, I really started to miss my country, and I really started to miss Fado, and I started to sing there professionally.
Amazing. Well, take us to London. I mean, it's a very common story for Portuguese people that they leave the country, they go somewhere else, they miss home, they eventually come back because of these things. What were some of those things in London? Just first of all, some of those things that you missed about Portugal, about your village, about your terra.
Before that, London was an incredible experience. I was like 19 years old, and it was the first time that I went out of home, and I went out of city and of country, and I went out. And it was really, really incredible, because I went out with a lot of colleagues from Chapiteau, and they were all in different arts in universities. And I was all the time from gathering to gathering of artists, and it was a really, really strong experience. And it was really important for me. But even though I started to miss, for example, I didn't like the olive oil at the time, but once a colleague from my home, they bring a bit of olive oil from Portugal, and I tasted it again. It was like, for example, and I discovered that I cannot live outside of Portugal, especially maybe when you are a Fado singer, because you are singing this country all the time. You cannot escape from this place. You really feel, you will miss this place when you are not here.
Amazing. What were some of the things you mentioned, the olive oil, but what were some of those things that you missed about Portugal?
Everything, the smells, the way I step on this floor is different. I really feel, even I'm all the time aboard because of dance and also because of my work. And if I stay longer than 15 days, like 1 month, I really start to miss Portugal. And when I'm arriving to here, it's like, I cannot explain you the landscape, the people, the language, the food. It's everything. I miss everything when I'm outside. But I love to go outside and come back. But
And then how did that journey happen? I mean, you mentioned how for a young person, Fado is not a cool thing. Maybe I think it's changing. I think we're starting to see it change a little bit. You're one of the reasons why this is happening. I know with my daughters, I've got a 17-year-old and 11. If I play Fado in the car, they roll their eyes like, "Oh, Dad, really? You want to put this stuff on now?" And I think it's beautiful, but for them, it's not so cool, So, what did it mean to you to start singing Fado in a place so far away, in a place like London? How did that happen, and what did that mean to you when you started doing that?
It was very natural. You have I think it's near to Hyde Park, and some galleries, but I don't remember the name of the Herholdt's galleries. You have a restaurant there it's called Fado, O Fado. And I went, and I just went there, and I said, "Can I sing?" And since there, I never stopped, because they had many events in the city, and we were receiving all the time also Fado singers and music players from Alfam and from here, and I was with them all the time. Once Marisa went there, and it was the concert Marisa and Friends, and they played in Albert Hall, and then they went to this restaurant, and I was with all of them, with Marisa, Rui Veloso, Tito Paris, all of these people. They were there. And it was really strong experience. I went to Lisbon, to London to study. I was very into musical theater, the previous year I was doing musical theater in Portugal, and that's how I gathered money to emigrate. But when I arrived to London, I started to change my tastes. I started to discover another interests in arts. I was a bit disappointed with some musicals in London because I was expecting more. And then I started to sing Fado very, very. It was my main profession in London. So I decided to. I went back to make a surprise to my grandmother, and then I went to a Fado house, and I sing there. It was Taverna del Rei in Alfama. And the owner of this place, she told me, if you come back, you can sing here every day.
Wow.
And then I came back. It was how. And then right after that, I went in a program which was Operação Triunfo, which it's a kind of pop idol, Portuguese and Spanish. And then the winner of this program, she was selected to Eurovision. And she invited some of us to be part of this project, and we were singing back. So after Operação Triunfo, I went to Eurovision with this girl, with Senhora do Mar, Vânia Fernandes. And then I released my first album in 2011, and I started to study dance also there the same time.
Okay. When you sang Fado in London, was it mostly Portuguese people that would come and listen, or did you find a lot of British?
No, I sang in the most crazy places. I sang for example, in a party that was in the bottom of a sort of a castle, very labyrinthic, and everyone was dressed black, but in the years 20. But dressing black. It was very strange. It was a very, very expensive party, like very elite for the elite. And I was singing in the library, Fado.
Wow.
And for example, in another room, you had a German drag queen singing Nina Hagen with 2 meters high. So I sing in the most crazy places in London. I was from, but also to many Portuguese people, like the communities, but also in very different places.
Yeah, because when you listen, when people talk about Fado, they say that with Fado you don't have to understand the words. It's something that you feel. Did you see that when you were singing it in these random places to random people? Did you see it touch people?
When I was in London, Fado was not known at all. Today, I think it's a bit more known. Mm-hmm. And when I was trying to explain to my colleagues what Fado was, I started also to explain for me what Fado was. Like to be in a place where you have, for example, a woman dressing in black with this child, and suddenly the lights goes down, and you have just the candles, and you are drinking wine and eating, and they were, really, you have this in your country? What is that? And I started to think, this is something special, and maybe I should contribute more for this, because this is in me also. And for me, Fado, it's a sort of a Portuguese ritual that we have. It's the song that sings everything that the other songs normally they don't want to sing. We put the how do you say that? You put the finger in the bruise, no? And we can sing about machismo. I don't know how this says in Portuguese, like the masochism. We can sing about violence. We can sing about sadness. We can sing about death, which is issues that normally we don't. It's sort of taboos, but Fado goes there, and you. I think you kind of treat all of these fears and all of these traumas through Fado. You can. It's our ayahuasca session, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's we had a lady in season 1 of the podcast who's a soul singer from New York, and she came to Lisbon to learn how to sing Fado, and she talks about it. It's the Portuguese blues or soul. It's that deep emotional connection, and it sounds like you were rediscovering Fado for yourself in London.
Yes, I was really starting. I was discovering. I was not rediscovering. I was discovering who am I singing Fado. Before London, I did a musical piece that was about Canção de Lisboa. It's a very old movie, and this relation with Fado more seriously also started there because we had a lot of Fado singers in the team of the musical, and they started it's when I first met George Fernando. They took me to a Fado house, and he was there, and since there we kind of get in touch all the time. And Raquel Tavares also, she was a children. She was very young. She didn't had released the first album yet. And since there, this was the first moment when I sang Fado publicly, and I felt, okay, this is my place. This is my beach. and
Yeah.
and yeah, since there I'm rediscovering Fado every day. It's something that you discover with the years. Your voice changes, your interpretation is also changing. Then you stop singing fados that you were singing in the beginning of your career, and then you pick up this fado again, and you sing in a totally different. Also, we are all the time singing with different musicians, which gives you totally different inputs in different houses. So we are all the time discovering fado, I think.
Amazing. Jonas, you mentioned that you would have to try to explain to people in London who were completely removed from this world what Fado is. For someone that's listening to this podcast for the first time, doesn't know anything about Portugal, doesn't know anything about Fado, what would you do? How would you describe Fado to them?
I would describe pretty much the same way, but I think Fado, it's a sort of music, urban music that what came from the people, very similar with tango or with samba. It's a port music, and at the time when Fado was born, Lisbon was one of the main airports of the world. So we had all the people coming in and going out, and Fado has all these influences, in my opinion. We had a lot of Brazilian influences, African influences, like also English influences. Portuguese guitar, it's a cousin of the English guitar, and it's
much more beautiful. It's a much more beautiful cousin.
And it's the gathering of all these influences, singing by people that were kind of in the bottom of the society, and they needed to talk about these problems, and that was how Fado was born. It was they used to talk about daily life, they used to talk about their pain, they used to talk about the news, and this is how Fado was born, and it keeps growing until today. Fado, maybe because of that and because of Marchas, Lisbon, maybe it's one of the most singing cities in the world because of this music particularly, and because of the Saint parties of Lisbon. You have like thousands and thousands of music about Lisbon because it's the hometown of Fado. And besides that, it's a ritual for me. It's a channeling. When in Fado we used to have this expression, today Fado is happening. And it's when really everything is connected and everyone is connected in a Fado house. And for me, it's much more special to listening Fado in a Fado house than in a stage, because it's when you really listen Fado and you really feel the voice without mics, without nothing. You are just, the voice is really getting into your cells, and that's it. And it's very connected with this soul musics that came from a place more deep in your interior.
I mean, that leads me to another question, because I've heard Fado in two scenarios. I've heard one, Anamora on a big stage in front of a cathedral, very dramatic, and that voice hits you in the chest, and it's amazing. Mm-hmm. And then I've heard it in Alfama, in a little Fado house, where it was one of those nights where the lady says, I don't know if they're going to sing or not. We'll see what happens. It depends on who arrives. Yes. And you're there eating, and you're drinking, and you're talking, and you're in this beautiful place, and you can smell and feel the history around you. And someone stands up in the corner of the room and they sing. And I don't remember that woman's name, but that left more of a mark than what Anamora did. Sorry to Anamora, but that was amazing.
You are describing Fado much better than me.
No ways. I can't describe it better than you.
But this surprise, I never know what will happen when I go to sing Fado in Lisbon. I never know what will happen in this evening. This is very, and also this thing, I'm facing that problem because I'm starting. I released my first album as a songwriter also, and I'm reconnecting with these stages again, singing Fado, and it's hard for me to bring this Fado happening of the Fado houses to the stage. It's really hard to report that to the stage.
Yeah, I can imagine. It must be, because it's so intimate and so real and pure when you hear it with a room of 50 people and no one else can get inside, and it's beautiful. How would you tell people to prepare themselves for Fado? Emilia, when we spoke, she said, come with an open heart and you will understand. But for someone, who's coming to Lisbon for the first time, they want to hear the real thing. What would you say to them to prepare themselves? How should they approach it? What attitude should they come with to hear Fado for the first time?
Open heart. It's a very, very, like you have to be available to receive this evening. Don't stay in just one spot. Try to figure out where is the next spot, because this is the surprise thing, that it's cool. Don't stay stay until the end, because for me Fado starts to warm up at midnight. Sometimes a bit earlier, but Fado starts to really warm up
so it's not going to be an early night.
And try to follow the Fado singers and the musicians to see where they go next, because this is nice. And if you like, you can bring some bottle of wine, marijuana. I don't know what you want to have fun in the evening, and you will be well received for sure, because Fado is that. It's a totally social happening, and music that needs everyone to happen.
Jonas, I mean, you mentioned how you've had these influences with hip hop and soul and dancing and art and everything, and you're this young guy. Your trademark is the stripes. I like it a lot.
I didn't think about it.
But it works. It's yours. So own it. It's okay.
That I like. I have a very strong connection with the sea. And with all the fados that sing about the sea and about the naviers and about the boats, I don't know. I think in another life, I was in one of these roles, or waiting someone to arrive, or in a boat, or maybe both.
Arriving.
And maybe the stripes, they just popped up this navier thing.
It works. But you're combining new and modern and old. With this kind of new Fado, you're kind of like this Fado rebel. It's really exciting. But do you see this happening in Fado now? We've seen it a bit with Anamora. She's brought this different dynamic to Fado. We see it with a couple of the guys that were on the latest, singing for Eurovision. There were a couple of Fado singers in there as well, along with you. What are you seeing in terms of this combination of new and old, and this sort of modernization of Fado happening in the music scene now in Portugal?
I don't do that to be different or to amplify Fado. I just do that because this was my path, and for example, when I started to dance, I always thought when I will start to be a Fado singer, I will have to quit dance, because it's not possible to combine both things. But then I started to study a bit of Fado history, and I discovered that Fado was danced. And when you see the main books of Fado history, they always start to talk about Fado through the dance, because Fado was mainly danced, and and it was a sort of tapping Fado with a very Iberian influence, but also with a very Afro-Brazilian influence. And it's called Fado Batido, tapping Fado. And then when I discovered that, I had a vision, and I decided to create a show which I will start to bring back again this fado dance, and this is my path now. Also very, so I don't do this to be different or to amplify fado. I think this just happened naturally, and the fado singers that are doing this, for example, Ana Moura, I think she does this with she's sort of natural doing this because maybe she to change something, first of all you have to spend many years knowing this to be comfortable, to be in dialogue with this. For example, I work with my boyfriend. We have this dance company, and we co-create many pieces. But then this one, I was feeling that I was co-creating with him, but I was also co-creating with another identity, which is called Fado. It has a certain smell, many smells, many textures. And to change these, you have to somehow be in the interior of this. And to be inside of Fado, you need many years to start to change something. If you want to contribute and not to destroy something, you should. Yeah. It's like when you have an old house and you will restore this old house. You have to know very well the house, and you have to know. Yeah. It's good to know the history. It's good to know the place, to the materials. It's a sort of the same thing. You have to be careful.
Yeah, you have to stay true to the roots and to the history of it before you start to change the exteriors or and respect it.
It's something that was born much before me, and it has it brings entire people and a world of voices and a world of histories and different lives. So I cannot just arrive here, know Fado. Okay, I know this, and now I'll do a different project.
Yeah, but I think
when your goal in Fado is to make something different.
Yeah,
I think it's already something. It has to be natural. You are different because it's your truth, and you. I'm dancing because in Fado, and I feel comfortable, but very afraid also to touch about this in Fado because I'm a choreographer, and I'm dancing for more than 13 years, 15 years. So
yeah, but I think that's something that's quite beautiful about this music is it seems like you have this, like yourself, this young generation who are bringing something a little bit new and fresh, but without losing the essence of the music and the history of the music. I mean, you spoke about the history of the music, how it had all these different influences, but the music stayed central and the feeling of the music stayed central. And that seems to be happening again.
And you can see this in the big stars of Fado. They really need to go to the Fado houses again to have dinner and to sing. They need to
They miss it.
They need to go to the source to come back again to the big stages. You need this connection. Otherwise, you lose your roots.
Yeah. Well, you spoke about how it's this music that you feel, and that you have to approach it with an open heart. You spoke about how you're a creative person, and it's about emotion and everything. How does Portugal, living in Portugal, how does Portugal inspire you to create, to keep feeling, to keep creating beautiful music and beautiful movements? How does Portugal inspire you?
It's not just Portugal. For me, it's really the quotidian in life that inspired me. Like everything can be material, and I really feel that it's a gift that someone gives me, because suddenly, for example, I'm looking to this plant, and suddenly this plant looks for me different, and I start to sometimes I wake up with some music and some lyric already. I really feel that I just have some facility to receive some information. I feel that this is not mine sometimes. I feel that I'm just channeling some information that it's here, and somehow sometimes I get it. But Portugal influences me a lot, of course, because Fado, it's my biggest way of expression. But human life can be very inspired. especially human lives, and how things happening, and how we are all connected, and how this works inspired me a lot, like this human fabric that you can compose with. It's very rich.
Yeah. Do you think growing up in sort of that environment that you grew up in before, where you were exposed to Fado in Mororia, in Lumiar, with your mom's side of the family, your dad's side of the family, and then your own influences, because you spoke about how sort of Fado was this combination, historically, it's this combination of the Brazil and the Afro and Portuguese and the Portuguese saudade and all these kind of things. Do you think growing up in that environment helped you to become a better artist, being able to bring these things together in your work?
No, I always was really sure about what I wanted to. When I say always, it's when I had like 4 or 5 years old. I was sure already that I wanted to sing, and I wanted to dance, and I wanted to do theater. And I used to do already some small play theaters in my house. I always knew that I wanted to do this, and it was the sort of my refuge. It was the art field. It was my therapy place. Now, at the time, I didn't know, but now in these days, I know that it was my small oasis.
Yeah.
And it was my sort of room, my private room,
space.
So I was just waiting to have my freedom, and to be available to start studying this more seriously. I started in the school and in the church. I was in a gospel choir. I was in a Catholic choir. Like every place where I could meet art, I was there. It was the moments where I was more happy. So it was not because of that I started to do art, because my family, my mother, she used to sing and dance also, but then she quit when she got pregnant of my brother, that's her first child. And my father, he used to sing opera, but they were not, professional. They were not encouraging me to feel this. Nobody was encouraging me. Nobody was stopping this, because I was. They give me all the freedom to choose what I wanted, and they encourage me to, if you want to follow this, you can follow this. But I was not encouraged by it. It was something that it really attracted me. I could not escape. That's why I said Fado means destiny, and Fado singers normally they believe in destiny, but in this case, I could not escape from to follow this path, because I would be very unhappy.
Beautiful. And for your family to see you sing now, what does it mean to them? Your parents that to see you go and do this now professionally, what does it mean to them? And how was it for them to see you singing and dancing?
It's very emotional, especially for Portuguese families. They connected, and especially, for example, for my mom. I was talking with her yesterday, and she was saying, I really miss to go to a Fado evening, to a Fado house, to listen to you, to listen to the others. I need this, and I feel these words probably, and I understand these words much better than the majority of people, because we are made of the same DNA.
Yeah.
I understand the weight of these words, and so they get really emotional that they have someone in the family that
beautiful,
that express these, that represent this sort of expression.
Yeah. Wonderful. Jonas, we're going to start wrapping up now. You're a busy man, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But Jonas, one thing that you would like people to remember and take away from our conversation, just one thing, if it's possible.
It's hard. One thing, it's for me, and the most important, it's to, when you travel, when you go to a place, I always try, maybe because I came from this field, try always to connect with the soul of the place, with the places where you can really feel the culture. I do this anytime, and if you come to Portugal, one of the main things to do is to go to Fado, but there are many other things. for me, it's the best way to know life and to know the world. It's when you go to a place to try to be very humble and to connect with this place with the most respectful and curiosity and with open heart. This is in Portugal and this is everywhere. So if you do that, I think you will be, I feel well received everywhere, maybe because when I go there, I go with totally all my sense open and to understand this place and to understand the soul of this place, because each place has really a different soul and a different way of things happen differently, and it's good to know that. And this will enrich you. If you travel like going to from resort to resort, you will not understand life in the world. So go to the people, go to the rough things.
Go to a Fado house. That's the,
yes, go to the Fado house.
Yeah.
Or wonderful. To a tablao of flamenco, or to a roda de samba, or to these places.
Exactly. How can listeners find you, follow you online, stay in touch with where you're going to be performing, your next projects? How can we follow you?
By Instagram, by YouTube, by Spotify. You just have to put jonas.fado, and I am there in the internet.
Beautiful. We'll put links on the show notes of the podcast so people can follow you and stay in touch.
I'm very bad in networks, but especially in Instagram, I always put, it's the main, because I have help for that. And it's the main network that's where I put all my shows and all the next dates. So
perfect. Okay. Jonas, last question, and a question that we ask all of our guests. Portugal, the simple life. Why?
It's a good question. Why? I think Portugal has a special effect because we are in the end of the land, in the beginning of the sea, and this caused a great mark in this place of land, because everyone was arriving, and this was the finished terra, or how they say in Latin. And maybe because of that, we were all the time a bit more humble about this gratitude of the sea. I don't know if but I connect this a lot, and we were losing all the time people in the sea. It's something very scary. It was not an easy place to live, because it was a small country fighting against the Arabic Empire and the Spanish Empire. So we had a very it's a miracle story also that we could talk about this now, but we were all the time like to be very humble and to be where our place, to know where our place was. So maybe that's why we live a simple life with not great expectations, but I don't know why. I don't know the reason.
It sounds good. I like it. I think it's a miracle that we managed to keep our little patch, to ourselves without those Spanish not taking it over.
Yes.
Jonas, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Wrap
and
it.
I'm gonna let you call it.
Wrap it.
So thank you once again to Jonas, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We'd love to hear from you. And as we say in Portugal, abraço. Welcome to the simple life.